see if they have proof.
We were out there, remember?
Right, you're good.
Everything at the same, oh, there it is.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is the meeting of the,
Wait, that one's not on, it looks like.
hold on. Push.
Yeah.
Usually that one maybe is, isn't it?
That one's on.
Oh, that one? That one doesn't move.
Whoa.
Well, I don't think it'd hear me. Well, good evening, everybody. I wonder if you could hear me out there. Okay. This is a meeting of the Yarmouth Conservation Commission, Thursday, September 19th, 2024. And I'm Paul Huggins. I'm the vice chair, and this is the very first time I've ever done this. I want you all to be kind to me. Okay. Anyway, this is to formally advise that, as required by GL Chapter 330A, Sections 18 to 25, and pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, and active relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on June 16, 2021, as extended by Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. The Yarmouth Conservation Commission will hold a public meeting at the date and time noted above. The public is welcome to attend either in person or via the alternative public access provided on the notice of meeting available on the Town of Yarmouth website. So having said that, though, I first want to take just a second here to introduce a new member of our commission, Bradford Bauer, who joins us tonight for his first meeting. We welcome him. I'm glad to see somebody step forward and do this really interesting work. So thank you, Brad.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Okay, the first item to review is SC 83-2431, a notice of intent, Woods Hole Group for Great Island Homeowners Association. Thank you.
And with that,
Right.
I'm going to recuse myself.
Okay, sure.
All right, can you hear me? Is this on, or?
I think he'll let us know if there's a problem.
Okay,
So,
all right, and this is my,
yes, that's
okay,
covered.
perfect. All right, my name is Leslie Fields with the Woods Hole Group, working with Great Island Homeowners Association on this project. Also, Brian Wall, Attorney Wall, is here, representing the Great Island Homeowners Association. I'm just going to jump right in and pick up where we left off with the last meeting. So we heard from the commissioners that you had concerns over that southern section of the geotextile bags because we were really unable to maintain sand cover over that section of the geotextile bags. So we've come back with a new design for that area. It's shown in the upper right-hand corner there, that cross-section. It is a fiber roll array. There are 5 fiber rolls, 24 inches in diameter. We will take the sand out of the geotextile bags and use that sort of between the road and the first 2 fiber rolls, compact it there, and use it as a buffer between the edge of the road and the fiber rolls. The fiber rolls will be anchored in place using steel cables and duckbill anchors. That's a typical way of anchoring them in place. And then once they're in place, then we'll cover them with sand, restore the dune, and plant it with beach grass. A little bit on a schedule and construction access and resource area impacts. So Great Island Homeowners Association is planning to do this work to replace the geotextiles with the fiber rolls this fall. They do hope to be able to beneficially reuse some sediment that's being dredged from the Sweetwater Creek project. And they'll use that for the sand cover on top of the fiber rolls. That is a project that has been permitted separately by, the proponents of the dredging project, and they do have permission to bring the material from the dredging project, side of the dredging project, across the dune to Great Island Road. So from there, then they'll place it in the pull-offs, and we'll use it to then place on top of the fiber rolls. And also on the end of that northern section of the geotextiles, where there needs to be a little bit of cover added to that as well. Construction access is shown in that upper right-hand graph. It's really essentially the same as what we did with the geotextiles. So coming onto the beach from Great Island Road in that little red hatched area, and then working along, from the beach to place the fiber rolls. So it's really identical to what we did before. Same with the resource area impacts. So the fiber roll array is 110 feet long. There will be impacts to 2,031 square feet of coastal dune and 2,047 square feet of coastal beach. Those impacts to the beach are primarily from construction access out on the seaward side of the fiber rolls. And all those areas were really previously impacted when we installed the geotextiles. In terms of future work, we are asking for permission to be able to maintain sand cover over the fiber rolls and the geotextile bags to the north with up to 2,090 cubic yards of sediment twice annually. That would be compatible sediment with what's, compatible with what's on the beach right now. We are proposing a monitoring program where that sand cover would be monitored by staff there at Great Island regularly, and then after storms, Woodsville Group will be out there monitoring and taking pictures. If we see the need for more sand cover, we'll note that, and we'll let the commission know about that. And if there's any damaged geotextile bags, we wanted you to know that those will be taken out and replaced with something similar to the fiber rolls. We're not going to put any new geotextile bags in there. And notices to the Concom will be provided before we do any of this work. So before we bring in any sand, before we take out any geotextiles, or replace them with fiber rolls. I did want to spend a couple minutes addressing the comments in that Mass DMF letter that you got, that Brittany brought up last time. They had a number of comments or recommendations that you guys could include in your conditions, and we are basically complying with all but two of those. I just wanted to go through those and just sort of explain that to you. So they were requesting a time of year restriction for all work on the beach from, I think, May 1st to July 31st. But we're really having a longer time of year restriction to protect the birds. So ours goes from April 1st to September 1. So we're definitely complying with that time of year restriction, and then some that Mass DMF wanted. We're also complying with Mass DEP's beach nourishment guidelines, in that we're using beach compatible material to construct the dune, and we're monitoring and maintaining the project as it's been built. We are, as I talked about, we are proposing to plant the dunes with beach grass. So we have a planting and restoration plan for those dunes. I'm going to skip to the bottom two. We're also adhering to the comment that says there's going to be no equipment in the intertidal zone. We're not proposing any of that. It's all going to be above the high tide line. And we're going to make sure that when the contractors come, if they are proposing any sort of refueling on site, that they'll have containment materials there and supplies there in case there's a spill. So those are the ones we're complying with. The two in the middle having to do with pre- and post-construction eelgrass monitoring and modeling of cross-shore sediment transport. The DMF comment letter indicated that this project that we're proposing is quite similar to one that the Commission saw back in 2021, which was the notice of intent for that larger beach nourishment project between Fox Point and White Cedar Point Road. And I think that the projects are really not similar at all. That was a project for 77,000 cubic yards of material to be placed on the dune and the beach, so much lower on the beach profile. And here we're proposing a max of about 4,100 cubic yards a year, all to be held in the dunes. So we don't think there's the possibility of any sort of impact to the eelgrass. The project that we're, the north section of this geotextiles at its closest is about 300 feet from the edge of the eelgrass that was mapped back in 2021 by the previous consultant. So given that big distance and the fact that we're not putting down anywhere near the 77,000 that was proposed for that other project, I think that those two conditions or those two comments should not be applied to this project. This is just a list of sort of recommended conditions. I can just go through this briefly. We're offering visual monitoring of the sandbags and the fiber roll array on a monthly basis, inspection after storms, with reports to the Conservation Commission along with photographs so that you can see, what the site looks like. We're asking for authorization to keep those sandbags and fiber rolls covered with sand, as I said, up to 2,090 cubic yards of beach-compatible material twice annually, if necessary. If not necessary, we're not going to do it. As I said, we're going to notify the Conservation Commission in advance of any of this work. We've got that time of year restriction for any work on the beach between March 1st and August 31st. And again, as I said, if any of those geotextile bags become damaged, we're not going to replace them with geotextiles. It's going to be the fiber roll array. So that's really it for what we're proposing. I did want to spend just like 5 minutes with two last slides to address some comments that we heard from the commission last time we were here. And it has to mainly with, what we were hearing is that the commission was frustrated because Great Island Homeowners Association, I guess, hasn't been moving fast enough to help address these resiliency issues.
There's a perception of that.
Yes, yeah, exactly, a perception of it, yeah. And hopefully we sort of dispel that perception or address that perception with this graphic right here. And what we did was we grouped the work into 4 different categories. So the blue dots on the left all have to do with that larger beach nourishment project between Fox Point and White Cedar Point Road. Okay, and so those consultants started that work, I'm going to guess, at the beginning of 2021. They filed an application with MEPA in June of 2021. They were issued a certificate from MEPA saying they did not need to do an EIR in July of 2021. Then they filed a notice of intent with this committee or this board in October of 2022. They did receive a denial, then appealed it to DEP and received a superseding approval in July of 2023. At that point, the Great Island homeowners stakeholders felt that they really learned a lot by going through the process of MEPA and this notice of intent filing. And one of the things they learned is that they really need to take a more holistic approach to finding a way to build resiliency for this road and access to their homes. So not only do they need to look at, how are they going to address erosion, like that beach nourishment project was addressing erosion and damage of the road because of erosion, but also flooding. And not just flooding from Nantucket Sound, but really flooding from Lewis Bay, so from the north. And that's one thing that we found is that that's really the more significant source of flooding, not from Nantucket Sound, but from Lewis Bay and the north. And so, they just decided that they wanted to step back and take a more holistic approach to looking at the problem and building a plan for resiliency. So they hired Woods Hole Group in November of 2023. So now we're looking at the green dots off to the right. So that was, 10 months ago. They hired us, and we first of all completed our vulnerability assessment in April of this year. And what that did was just looked at the roads and provided the stakeholders, maps showing probabilities of flooding and when they can expect flooding. And what we were able to show them is that right now the roads are vulnerable to flooding during high tides, and that definitely gets worse as we move forward in time with sea level rise. So by the time they're at 2030 and 2050, they're going to have impacts from flooding on that road daily. So we were able to demonstrate that to them. And then by May of this year, we presented a bunch of conceptual alternatives for addressing resiliency, and then we just issued the draft feasibility study to them in September and hope to be able to produce a final report in October. In and amongst all that work on the feasibility study, we had the storms in December and January of last year. And we got the emergency certification for putting in the bags and trying to protect the road and then filing this notice of intent. So there really has been quite a lot of activity. I think one of the things that Great Island Homeowners Association has learned through the course of our work is just how vulnerable really that road and access point is. they are committed to doing something because we've been able to demonstrate that it's a serious problem and it's coming soon. They really have no choice, and they've come to really understand that. So that's been one of the benefits of doing the study, I think. And then finally, just this last slide here gives you a glimpse of some of the recommendations that we made in the feasibility study. This near-term solution, it's one that we talked about last time we were here at the meeting, and it's really, so for the next, say, 1 to 5 years. And so what that is essentially filing what we're calling a proactive notice of intent with this commission for emergency roadway protection as needed based on the dune erosion. So if we have dune erosion like we saw last winter in an area that has a dune right now that's protecting the road, then we're going to, have hopefully an order of conditions in place where we can come in and install this fiber roller system that you're seeing tonight for the south section, cover it with sand and plant it with beach grass. They would also stockpile some of these materials on site so that they would be able to, implement these solutions right away and not have to worry about supply chain issues. And so that particular near-term solution is intended to protect the road from damage caused by erosion until this mid to long-term plan can be implemented. So we're guessing 1 to 5 years. And we're hoping to be able to file that notice of intent with this commission this fall. And then the other recommendations were for mid and long-term resiliency to raise sections of the road to 4.5 feet in ABD 88 and rebuild the bridge. And then a second recommendation, which was also to relocate the road further landward and elevate sections of it to 7.5 feet in ABD 88 and also reconstruct the bridge. The solution that they select will probably be a combination of those two, mid and long-term solutions. But that's what we've presented them with. And they are and will be in the next coming months as a group selecting, what path they want to move forward on. I'm going to remind the commission that it is a group of 43 homeowners, and it takes a while to make a decision, a collective decision. Everyone's got to contribute to the funding. The projects, either one of those mid to long-term projects are incredibly expensive, millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars. So they've got to figure out how to fund it, and everyone's got to be on board with it. Again, they're committed, and they have no other choice, and they know that. So they are going to make a decision. Once they make that decision about what to go forward with, then it's got to be designed and permitted and constructed. So we're estimating all that, everything on that road right there is about a 5-year process before we can then sort of stop with this near-term sort of emergency road protection solution. So that's the plan moving forward, and we wanted to sort of share a little bit of that with you so that you hopefully understand the difficulties and that they are moving forward and working together and committed to implementing some solutions here. And I'll stop with that.
Okay.
Have anything you want to add?
Oh, I don't have anything to add to that at this point.
Okay, thank you for that
Yeah.
explanation. Tonight what I'd like to do is ask Brittany first for some of her thoughts, and then we're going to open up the discussion with the commission.
Sure. So in the application, you had monitoring for late fall and early spring, but in your presentation, you said it would be monthly, which is what I would recommend to the board if they decide to approve this, is monthly monitoring during the winter storm season, just so you get a better idea of what's going on, especially in our season of erosion. But the early spring, late fall, monthly in the winter would be what I would recommend. And I was wondering if you could define more clearly if there was a threshold that you had in mind for when would be the time if a bag was damaged. What's the threshold for damage that would warrant replacement with the fiber rolls?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And it's when the bag is deteriorated enough to where it's not holding any sort of sand and it's sort of compromising the other bags next to it or, allowing damage to the road.
So past the point of where some geotextile material has been lost to the ocean.
Yes, Yes.
So microplastics have already entered the ocean at the point where you're proposing to replace the bags with fiber rolls?
Well, hopefully not. Yeah, I mean, that was one thing that we had said in the previous, I think, presentation is that, you know, through this more frequent monitoring, and I agree with what you're suggesting as far as the more frequent monitoring, that, you know, if we see that it's starting to deteriorate, then we're going to, you know, we're going to move. And we're going to remove it, and we're going to pick up any sort of geotextiles that have entered the beach and try to keep them out of the environment.
Okay, and my next question is, since you're not proposing replacement with a similarly sized and shaped biodegradable material, fiber rolls are sold in like 25 foot lengths. How are you proposing, so if there's 2 damaged bags or 1 damaged bag, what is the proposed steps?
In the northern section, you mean?
Yes, in the section where you're not proposing to replace immediately.
Yeah. I think we have to work through that a little bit. So, you know, you can get them in 10-foot lengths. So I think that would be, you know, the length we'd be sort of aiming to, maybe the smallest length we'd be able to work on.
Is it not more resilient to replace in the longer sections, or more robust if you have, is it not? If you do longer lengths?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the threshold should be pretty low then. If the commission decides to approve this, if there's a damaged bag or 2, that should initiate the full replacement for the fiber rolls, because that means the other bags are experiencing and have experienced the same amount of degradation or similar over time, where I think that would be a good step. So we're not having segmented portions of that bag array being replaced at different rates, where the fiber rolls would be installed at one time and have maintenance and monitoring from that point on. What do you feel about that?
Well, the other section is 810 feet long, and if we've got 25-foot length fiber rolls, I think that, you know, it's entirely possible that, you know, we could see damage, you know, at an end or something, and I think that we could replace, you know, maybe 25, 50, maybe 100 feet, without having to replace the whole section of geotextiles and still have it be effective.
Okay.
I would hope that we wouldn't have to replace the whole 810 feet with fiber rolls right away if we see damage, you know, in 2 or 3 bags.
I think we would need more, once, obviously, if there's no damaged bags right now, I think we would need a more clearly defined plan outlining the next steps for sectioning that out, making a plan to section that out. Because, I don't know, maybe quarters, maybe fifths, but I think it should really be a substantial amount of that array being replaced at one time in order to get those geotextiles out of there as soon as possible, if the commission decides to approve allowing them to stay. But I think that would be possible to submit later,
I was going to ask that. Okay, perfect.
a more concrete plan on sectioning that out.
Okay, anything else, Brittany?
That's all I had.
Okay, so now the commission, David?
I have a couple things. First of all, I know that you guys came on after what I'm about to mention happened, but I think I want to be clear that part of my frustration, I won't speak for everybody else in the commission, is the time when somebody put it upon themselves to add the rocks and the cubic yards of sand without any permission from us. And that was, I don't know if they even showed up on your chart of your timeline, but that's where my frustration comes from. And then here we are, I think, was that pre-COVID? I mean, was it?
No, it wasn't pre-COVID.
Were you here?
I was here.
Okay.
It was on the, at least when they put the sand down, maybe not the rocks, that was like late 2022.
Okay, so, I mean, that's where my frustration comes from, is somebody doing that without any permission. We left it there because we felt that having to take the rocks up would do more damage than leaving them there. But I just want to make that clear. I do agree with Brittany. I don't really want to see any plastic make its way into the ocean. So I think anytime you start to see deterioration, we need to replace it right away. Whoops. I think I had one more note. You gave us, so I appreciate the fact you've given us what could be a permanent solution, and hope that moves along. And I guess that's it for now. Maybe I'll come back, but.
Okay, thank you. Jack?
I just wanted to say,
I'm sorry, Pat?
I just wanted to mention, I read your, the Commonwealth of Mass on the marine fisheries review, and it states very much that this review is for a temporary situation. It said 2 years right in it. It's already been almost a year. So this wasn't for a long-term solution. It was 2 years. It was in this review. And I read about why they felt about the eelgrass and the study for the horseshoe crabs. I mean, it's shoals, they're called horseshoe shoals, so they're very important out there, and they were just saying how delicate they are to being covered with any type of sediment. And with the amount of sand you want to put on there twice a year for an indefinite period of 5 years is a lot of sand. And I think those 2 studies should be done before, just as they recommended, before we decide on that. And that's something I felt. And also about the sand, how it's supposed to be modeled under the Mass DEP regulations. I mean, some of the sand that I see in the pictures doesn't look like the same color even of the sand on the beaches. So I don't know where, with the sand you're getting from a dredging site, if that is also going to be under those regulations, if somebody is looking at it and making a decision that it's good sand to use. Some dredging materials aren't the best. And they're just looking for places to put it. I've seen that in other issues where we've had dredging materials, and what are we going to put it around here? So.
Have the dredge materials been analyzed?
Yes, they have.
Right.
Yes. And so they have been found to be compatible with what's on the beach.
Okay.
The material that we used before came from the upland. Material we used most recently to cover the geotextiles came from the upland. It did have a sort of a reddish color to it. That's common for material from the upland. It does bleach out over time, but in terms of its physical properties, so grain size and distribution of grain sizes, it was also compatible with what's on the beach now. And a lot of that color has sort of blended, bleached out, and it is a lot more similar in color to what's on the beach right now. One thing I'll say about the eelgrass, there was an eelgrass survey done by the previous consultants in 2021. Again, we don't feel at Woods Hole Group that the amount of material we're putting on the beach is anywhere near the 77,000 cubic yards for the bigger beach nourishment project, where those conditions were required. We don't think there's a risk of this material impacting those eelgrass beds because of the distance between where we're working and the eelgrass that was mapped in 2021. I think in terms of requiring us to go out and do an eelgrass survey now, we're almost at the end of the period in which we can do an eelgrass survey because it starts to senesce and you can't map it anymore until next, say, July, August time frame. And so, if we have to do something like that before we replace these bags or do any work, in my opinion, we're looking at another year before we could do anything. Again, I just don't think that the scale of this project warrants mapping the eelgrass in that way, because I don't think there's going to be an impact from this project on those eelgrass beds.
Well, that was written in 2024, what they were saying. So I'm just saying maybe they had a different opinion.
It might be a good middle ground for the board to recommend that an eelgrass monitoring plan, maybe once or twice during the life of this project, would solidify that there are no impacts to the eelgrass being found. Maybe the end of the 4th or 5th nourishment during the growing season, and at the end of the project. Or maybe just once, but that's something for the board to consider as an option.
Read my mind.
Okay, Jack?
Well, I think you seem to be providing a pretty good plan. you are gonna replace all the south area bags, is that true?
Correct.
And I think that what Dave and others have said, I agree pretty much with the commission's being able to gather around those statements and put them in the conditions. I wish there were a different way of coming up with some kind of pressure for your 40-odd owners. The price of the road is really somewhat small compared to some other things in life. I think I really don't have any other comments that have been covered.
Yeah, I was just interested also in that eelgrass question that Pat brought up, and sounds like monitoring is probably a pretty good idea, however that might come together. At this time, is there anybody in the audience who would like to contribute to this discussion or have a comment? Anybody on Zoom? I see none. I guess we could make what's the top? I can't tell what, is it a hand raised? Oh, on top right.
No, I'm sorry, I can't see the name.
Cheryl, maybe?
Cheryl.
Shelley? Cheryl?
How do we acknowledge that? There it is,
He's on it.
Cheryl. Okay, oh, there you go. Can you unmute yourself, Cheryl? Or do we have to unmute her? Cheryl?
You do it.
Sorry, that was for when you started the meeting, it was still muted, so I'm sorry
Okay.
that it was still there.
You could just identify yourself for the record, please?
Have nothing to say.
Oh, she's
Yeah,
all
I'm
set.
Oh, I didn't hear that. Oh, I didn't hear you. Okay, thank you, Cheryl.
Yep.
Bye-bye. Okay, I guess we're all set. And we need somebody to make a motion.
I move to accept the plan with the special conditions we discussed, including monitoring and
No grass.
others, eelgrass.
Yeah.
What type, how often monitoring?
Monitoring monthly for and the eelgrass monitoring, is that
Yeah.
what you mean?
That's what I mean.
Well, you can't do it till July, you said?
So it would only be eligible in the summer for monitoring. So you can ask for annually or after 2 years or
I'd say
at the end.
monthly. I don't know what monitoring eelgrass means, what work it entails. Is that a lot of work to?
Transects, snorkeling.
What?
It's a considerable amount of work, it is, and especially if we're not putting that material down. I don't see, we're asking for, up to 4,000.
So why don't we monitor it in the summer of 2025 and then again in 2027, 2 years later, to see if there's been a change?
Just a photo.
Who's that?
Oh, Cheryl, you're not muted.
Oh, you're not muted, there you go.
Okay, yeah, I think that would be reasonable.
Okay, thank you.
So the eelgrass will be monitored in 2025.
25 and then 27.
Okay, and that's acceptable? Okay, and there was the other item having to do with the replacement of the bags.
But a more detailed plan would be needed to be provided for sections of replacement
Can we provide that sort of after?
later.
Okay, all right, perfect.
Yeah, okay.
We need a second.
All right, you have a second?
How about the modeling of the migration of the sand to the shellfish, to the horseshoe crab area? That was one of the recommendations too, if we could monitor that.
That modeling was recommended for impacts to eelgrass, not so much for impacts to the horseshoe crabs. So the horseshoe crabs,
That's how I read it when I read this piece of paper.
the horseshoe crabs are impacts to horseshoe crabs are mitigated by just not working within the time of year when they're there.
That's not what this said. It was saying if the sand covered the eggs, there was a problem. I read the review.
So time of year restriction should be observed to protect sensitive stages of horseshoe crabs from sediment disposal. Beach fill could crush spawning eggs. No nourishment or beach construction should take place from May 1 to July 31st. So implementing that time of year restriction would mitigate the impacts to these organisms.
Okay.
They provided the planting plan, and the survey was for the eelgrass.
And the modeling there is for impacts to eelgrass. That bullet right there where Brittany's hand is. And we're gonna actually measure it. Per the condition that the board is getting ready to.
For eelgrass monitoring. And I think just one, I don't expect that you will find impacts for eelgrass monitoring, but if you do find negative impacts, that some sort of management plan be created to nullify those negative
I think
impacts.
that's
But
fair.
I don't think you would find any.
Did we get a second? Did we get a second? Yeah.
Would it be possible to add that an annual report come from the group to us on the progress
So the monitoring,
solution?
yeah, so it's my understanding that the monitoring reports in late fall and early spring would have some detail in them. And then,
Like a presentation?
you want them to return to the board?
But are you talking about for the long-term
Progress for the-
solution?
Right, yes.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know if we can require that.
I expect not.
Yeah, I think if
Looking for volunteers.
they monitor, if we, if they send what the progress is and we have questions, I'm sure Brittany will bring it to them. I don't see why we should make them come here.
Exactly.
If they feel they want, you're always welcome to, but I don't think we should make you.
Okay, we have a motion, a long motion.
Okay, we have a second?
Second.
Second? Okay. You don't need to read the motion back or anything like that, well set, you got it?
Do we understand the motion?
I think I understand it, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Want to make sure everybody does. All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Those opposed?
Nay.
No, she said nay.
3-1.
Oh, sorry, okay, pass that next, so it's,
3-1. The motion passes.
well, that was easy. Okay, thank you.
Was? All right, thank you very much, appreciate your
Very much
time.
for your time.
Your work.
Yeah, thank you.
Should have interesting copy tomorrow.
Okay, let's get past that. Okay, the next item is continued request to amend order of conditions. That's the 83-2379. If there's been a request for continuation on this? So we just need a motion to continue
That's correct. October 3rd.
to October 3rd.
So moved.
So move, David. Continue.
Jack second.
Jack second. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 4. Oh, are you in, you go down this too, Brad?
No, he's not in yet.
Okay.
He's respectfully observing.
Okay. Good on that one? This is,
You don't have to sign it, you just put it up.
oh, okay. I already signed it. Okay. Okay. Next is, continuing request to amend order of conditions. SC 83-2386, Shorefront Consulting for Joseph and Nina Iannelli, 80 Grandview.
Good evening. Mark Burgess of Shorefront Consulting, representing originally Iannelli, but now the property belongs to Souza, who are the son and daughter. No worries.
No worries.
Okay, so when we were here before, we had proposed a walkway and a patio and the mitigation to go with it. The walkway was not well received, and we heard you. So that has been eliminated from the revised plan. The mitigation areas were updated accordingly, or 3-to-1 for the new portion of the pervious deck area. That's about the changes, really. You can see the revised planting list is part of the letter the revision letter. And, like I said, again, you have the revised plan, and the mitigation areas are in the letter as well for the allowance. Brittany asked to clarify the table. I hope I got that right. The table that's in the plan.
Close. It's
Okay.
acceptable for now.
A valiant effort.
Just to note for the future, if you have an existing, it also would be included in proposed.
It would be what?
So if you have existing, 319 square feet of deck, those are there.
Oh, I see.
You're still
Instead of proposed
proposing
zero.
319. You're not putting what you're proposing to add. You're putting the total proposed. So for now, this is fine, but for the future, that's what Ed's looking for.
Yeah, so then
Existing,
it
proposed,
can go to zero.
seeing it unchanged. That's what we're looking for. But this part is great.
And there's a new way that we're plotting these, so that I hope they come out a lot clearer, because they were kind of blurry and washed out before. But anyway, that's a drafting thing. That's really it. We listened to you, we deleted the walkway. You did want me to state that the original reason for the walkway, I was told or misunderstood that it was to prevent sand from getting in the house. That's not a big deal. His mother is occasionally in a wheelchair, and he wanted a flat surface to get from the patio to the dock landing area. So he can either cut the grass very short or whatever. But he just wanted me to make that clarification for you. Other than that, I hope we addressed everything, and address any questions you might have.
Thank you for addressing the commission's questions. That's all. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any questions from the commission? Seeing none,
The only thing I would ask is it possible to put a mat or pad that would help with the wheelchair?
I asked him, I can ask you guys the question, I asked him about using a Moby mat. You know what those
Yeah.
are, right?
Yep.
And that's not a structure, right? He could he roll that out in the summertime and just roll it back in the winter or whatever? And nobody would.
It would. I don't see how it would help on a hard surface, but if you wanted to do that, that's fine.
Good. Okay.
It's hard ground. Those usually are just to solidify the sand. But that's what he wants. That's fine.
Yeah, well, if it rained and it was muddy, then that would help traverse the area. So I did pose that idea with him. We'll see. But I'm glad that you're acceptable for that option. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Anybody else? Anybody in the audience? Anybody on Zoom? Okay, can I have a motion to, what would it be, to approve this project as with that?
As proposed is fine.
Pardon me?
As proposed is
Proposed.
fine.
Jack? Second? Second, David? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries unanimously. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time. So, welcome, Mr. Power. We haven't met. You'll be seeing a fair amount of me soon.
Look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Okay, next, request to amend order of conditions, SC 83-2303. Mr. Healy, how are you?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, members. For the record, my name is Kieran Healy. I'm a land surveyor with the BSC Group. We're here for an amended order of conditions at 40 Mayflower Terrace. The work that was proposed was completed, and there were a couple of items out there that, after walking the site with Brittany, she felt that we should file an amended order of conditions. One of the biggest things is that at the side of the driveway, we are proposing a drainage structure. Excuse me. There is runoff from the driveway that is going straight down towards the river, so we are looking to put in a catch basin to capture any water that would run off that particular driveway. There is also a stairway, excuse me. There was also a stairway that was on the side of the building prior to construction that they removed to get a machine in there to do the grading at the back of the site. So we're looking to replace that stairway. It was there. This is kind of almost the same location, but not quite the same location. So that's one of the reasons for the amended order of conditions. On the north side of the building, there is a retaining wall that exists now that was not permitted. We're looking to confirm that wall. And then there was small evidence of erosion on the top of that wall. So when I met with Brittany out there, we came up with a solution as to putting a small wall on top of that, so to reduce any chance of any further erosion in that area. Because it has changed, we originally had 1-to-1 mitigation out here. Because of these changes, we've increased it to 1.5 to 1 for mitigation. So that and those plants have been, the quantity of plants has been increased on the face of the plan. Other than that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you have. Just one other thing, the proposed dock is almost through 91. We're not fully there yet, but down to one last portion with 91, so we hope to be starting the construction on the dock shortly, but it's not part of this. It had its own separate notice of intent, but as you can see, the proposed location is on the plan, just so everybody knows that we're underway with the permitting and almost finished with the permitting on the dock. So,
Thank you.
other than that, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, Brittany, do you have any?
Sure, some. I did walk the site with Karen, which was greatly appreciated. On the original approved plan, the mitigation that was provided and approved was 2-to-1, I think.
1-to-1.
On the approved plans, it says 2-to-1, but the disturbance, the increased mitigation that you would be offering would be for the excavation of the yard and the additional structures, or just the new structures?
I tried to incorporate both the work that was done, the work that was previously permitted and the work that was done now, and come up with a new square footage for everything.
Okay.
That's what you have, is a new square footage for everything.
Okay. 'Cause I was under the impression that the original plan was approved at 2-to-1, but either way, I think there's, like you said, there's a lot of erosion in the yard. Implementing this drainage, do you think that would eliminate the erosion on the site as it is right now? The backyard has no vegetation. I mean, there's weeds, but the soil is loose. It's,
Yeah, they're getting ready to plant, and they were just waiting for this so that they could go back in and get everything squared away at one time. So.
are they blanketing and seeding the slope here? Are they hydro-seeding, or what kind of plan do they have for that?
They plan on seeding. I'm not sure if it's hydro-seeding or seeding, but they do plan on, I don't even know it's rolled out grass at this stage, but they do plan on getting that stable as quickly as they can.
Okay.
But they just wanted to get, because they've got to bring in a machine to dig out the catch basin, I think they were just waiting until all the machine work was done before they started planting.
Okay. Yeah, that silt fence is working hard. It's collecting a lot of eroded sediment. Yeah, if you're saying the original was approved 1-to-1, I mean, I can try and pull the first one up, but that was my only comment. Why would you decrease it? But if you're increasing it, that is different. The board can, yeah. I'm trying to find it while you guys discuss. Right. This is the original approved plan. It says 2-to-1.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm going to be increasing the mitigation to 2-to-1, and that was an error by me. For some reason, I was looking at 1-to-1. Maybe it was in my head, but we gladly increase that to 2-to-1 to be consistent.
That would only be my request, to be consistent with the original approved ratio. Other than that, sorry, one more question. Are you proposing planting shrubs under the second wall to stabilize, or just grass? Do you think either would work?
We hadn't really discussed it. It was, I think it's going to be a case of when the wall is complete to see what's happening there. The area between the two walls is going to be about 2 feet wide, so it's not going to be substantial, but there is going to be a little bit of area there. So we could, we could plant that, and as it's within the 50 foot, increase use some zone mitigation. So obviously, we need a lot more if we got to increase another 25% to that area right there of green.
Okay,
Okay. So, all set?
all set.
So what, mostly is about the mitigation, which is gonna be increased to 2 to 1? Okay.
So can we approve this with the idea that we get a plan?
Yes?
Okay, that's what I would recommend. Otherwise, I have no questions.
Okay, anybody else? Bradford?
I have no questions.
Jack?
No? No?
Before
I forget though, the last one we just did, did Bradford sign that one?
No,
No, okay. But he signs this one.
he can sign this one.
All right.
Your first vote.
Did you bring it?
Anything from the audience at all? On Zoom? Okay, we have a motion to approve the plan, let's see, as presented.
So moved.
We'll move Pat,
Second?
second Bradford.
Get his name.
Huh?
Let me get his name.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Right.
Thank you, members.
Right, so who seconded that motion? I missed it.
Bradford.
Bradford.
Okay.
Yeah.
Select one, right, Mayflower, okay. Okay. This one you get to sign. Next is notice of intent, 5 Glenwood Street. Doesn't have a number on it, so.
We have not received a DEP number yet for this project, so we can't vote on it tonight.
Okay. If I could open you up for discussion and make presentation, and then we'll wait on the DEP number.
Getting it?
Again, for the record, my name is Kieran Healy from the BSC Group, representing the owners of the property, Ron and Jean Rackwell. We have been in front of you with this project in the past, and we had received approval for some sand disposal in front of the wall, between the wall and the ocean. That sand was eroded pretty quickly, and the area behind the wall was also washed out. So what we're looking to do is to raise the wall by 3 feet to protect the property, and to put in sand at the back of the wall, on the landward side of the wall, and then plant beach grass on that sand area to stabilize the whole area. We're proposing an additional wall further in towards the house, and we're hoping to bring up basically the whole area in that to reduce the risk of flooding. But the primary job here is the raising of the seaward-facing wall by 3 feet. The disturbance will be on top, basically, of the existing wall, and the area right behind it where the current erosion is happening. We're also planning to repair and chink the existing wall. There are a few areas where it's been damaged, so it's a loose stone wall, so we're looking to just fill in those gaps where erosion can further happen. Other than that, I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Okay.
I have a couple questions. When you're saying wall, do you mean increasing the height of the existing revetment?
Yes.
Okay.
Revetment wall, yes.
Revetment wall, just making sure. The other portion of this project is that you have a wall here on the landward side,
Yes.
and we're in the velocity flood zone. And our new regulations don't allow new structures within the velocity zone. So what is the purpose of filling this area? The structure itself is outside the velocity zone, still in the regular flood zone, but this is just the yard, right? So why are we trying to prevent flooding in this portion of the parcel?
To prevent if water comes over the wall, that it won't come. Right now we have a slope that goes back down towards the house, and the reason for it is just to level out the area. So if any water tops over the house, if any water tops over the revised revetment wall, then it's not going to drain straight down towards the house. That's the reason, just to put in a flat area there, so if anything tops over, it will settle in that sand as opposed to flood straight back towards the house.
And what if,
Reason for it.
without the wall, without the back wall, would it provide the same function?
It wouldn't work as well. To say it wouldn't work at all, I think it would work in some way, but just being able to stabilize the edge of the sand and keep that area relatively flat is what we're trying to achieve. If we don't have a wall there, then we're going to need to have a slope at the back of the wall and slope it down towards the building, which is what we're trying to avoid.
So under our current regulations, this would require a variance. We don't allow new structures, which the stairs and wall would be new structure in the velocity zone. So if you were just to repair and rechink the revetment and increase the elevation, you would still need to add some material behind it to support the wall. Is that correct?
Yes, definitely.
Would these be new cobbles near the tide gate, or are they existing?
Those are the existing ones. Those
Okay.
are there.
Yeah, those are all my comments, but this does require a variance, and I would recommend not allowing a new structure within the velocity flood zone. And fill is generally avoided in the velocity zone except for dune or beach nourishment, and since this is above a revetment, it wouldn't really be dune or beach nourishment. So I recognize that you would need a certain amount to support raising the elevation of the revetment to provide support for that structure, but anything additional I think would be also stretching our current regulations for the velocity flood zone. Those are all my questions.
Okay, so you said that a variance would be required. Could you repeat that
For this back wall
the back wall?
and the stairs there, because they're both located within the velocity flood zone.
You also said something about, did you say stretching the regulation?
Well, fill should generally be avoided
Yeah.
in the velocity zone, but some would be required to elevate the existing revetment. The rest of it proposed for flood attenuation in this yard would not be consistent with our current regulations.
And you said that from the wall, I didn't go out there, I'm sorry, but the slope goes down towards the house from the wall?
Yes, if you look at the section that's on the top left of the sheets, or if you could bring it there, you can see the existing ground right there is, so the reason for the proposed grade was so that we would, if there was any wash over the wall, that it wouldn't drain towards the house. There is a low spot and then it does go back up towards the house again, but depending on how that floods, that's the reason for this flat area, if you will, is to stop the water going straight towards the house.
Okay, all right, thank you. David?
Yeah, why sand and not some plantings? It seems to me that the first time you have a washover, all that sand is going to make its way someplace,
We
and then you
have,
have to replace it.
yeah, we have proposed sand-filled beach grass area, so the majority of it is beach grass.
And when I was out there, I got the feeling where it says existing sand recreational beach, it's quite a large area. To me, to me,
What's there today is large, yes, we're cutting that in half basically by planting on the left and the right here. So the current area is very little beach grass. So that hatched area is all sand-filled with beach grass on top of it. So we're reducing the overall area by about 50%. Where the crosshairs is right now, the hand, if you will, that's currently sand, and that would be sand with beach grass, is what we're proposing.
but the middle still would be sand.
The middle would still be sand.
So my question still stands. I mean, that sand still has to go somewhere if it's flooded, which it will be.
With the area being flat and the beach grass adjacent to the wall, there's going to be a lot less water coming over the top. Not, it's still amount the same water coming over the top, but it will be less destructive because of the beach grass that's there. And by adding 3 feet to the wall, we're hoping to reduce the amount of water that comes over.
That's all I have. Bradley?
I don't think I have any additional comments than what's already been said.
Okay, thank you. Jack?
Well, I think we're in a situation where we're trying to do something to get over the hump for the next 5, 10 years, and we really should be planning for the next 50, but can't really do much about that at this point. And by that I mean, raising walls a lot more than what we're even talking. This place could be gone in a really big storm. So, if you have enough, if you can control your own anxieties about the possibility of large storms coming, that's great. So I really don't have any, well, the one thing I would suggest is probably more beach grass area, like you're saying, because even with that one little portion, if any waves get in there, they're going to disperse and spread out and just wipe out the beach grass that you have there. So I don't know if there's a solution about that, except for putting all beach grass in, except for a path.
Okay, thank you. Pat?
I kind of agree with Brittany in the fact that we just made these new regulations about not putting walls in the velocity zone, and this is a velocity zone. And it's a beautiful spot, and I understand wanting to protect it, but I don't know, just keep building walls higher and higher. I just, it's going to direct the water around these walls to other areas, and I just don't see how we can just keep paying no attention to what we just decided with the last regulations, that we're not putting any walls in the velocity zone. And I think the plantings and would help, and fixing the original wall out there is going to add some protection to the area. But the increase in the size of the walls and the walls in the back, I just don't see how we can allow that.
No, I was going to say I agree, so you know where I'm coming from.
Just a question about, you said something about a 3-foot increase in the wall along the existing wall in the front.
Yes.
So you raise it up 3 feet, and then the water still goes over in a storm, right? It still washes through that big area.
Yep.
It's still heading downhill, unless you get some kind of variance to increase the wall to contain it on the other side, right?
Correct.
It's still going to wash through.
It's still going to wash through, but there will be a few things. One is that by raising the wall 3 feet, we expect to reduce the amount of water that's going to top the wall substantially. That's the primary focus of this, is to raise that particular wall.
So can I ask a quick question? Would the tide gate do anything to take that water out?
Well, it will that be by having the secondary wall, if you will, near the house. That's going to, you can see by the grading that we're diverting the water towards the tide gate. So if it does splash over, it's going to go in that direction.
Wouldn't it still go that direction now, because that's where the lowest point in the yard is?
I would suggest you need to,
Or not? Okay.
you need to think about putting a rock in that, re-chinking that, because that helps the return when you don't put that in.
That is proposed, maintenance of the wall.
So that's going to be turned down.
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
I was saying that when you put in small stones, it hurts the ability to get return water out of the yard.
That's true.
So are we disallowing the chinking?
We haven't discussed the chinking.
One wall at a time, I guess.
So is it feasible to increase the elevation of the revetment and still bring some fill on the side and have a gentler slope toward the existing low point in the yard? Would that be enough? I guess you'd have to figure out how much you need horizontally in order to support this revetment of that size, but I think that's what the board is leaning toward, eliminating that back wall and stairs.
I guess as we don't have a DEP number,
Don't.
let me go back to my client and see, and we'll have a look at this, and if there are changes to be made to the plan, I'll have them in before the next Friday, and if he wants to go forward with this, I'll come back and the DEP number will be issued by then, and we can discuss it further.
Okay.
All right, sounds good, thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments from the audience? I see somebody with their hand up. Can you just identify yourself for the record, please?
Excuse me. My name is John Barker. I'm at 7 Glenwood Street, which is next door to this. I came in favor of this, and I still am in favor of it. I'm just curious to know where that wall is. Could I come over and see?
Which wall?
Here's the back of the house, and here's the sand area.
Yeah,
So this is the wall that we're talking about, in the house.
I get you.
This, the revetment wall.
What would that be? Just one wall?
It would be Versalock wall.
Just one?
It's an interlocking wall.
Those block walls?
Yes.
They stack?
They stack, yes.
I wouldn't have any problem with that. It would end, obviously, with this wall.
Tie into this existing wall. If you want to stuff.
I'm gonna replace my wall. Also, my wall's falling down. All right. I just wasn't aware of this. I'm still in favor of it.
Okay, thank you.
Back rows, I've been here for 25 years, and I think they've been in this property for about 15, and they absolutely do everything perfect. They're real first-class people. The house is a beautiful home. They maintain it as good as anybody in the neighborhood. But I support them.
Okay, thank you for your input.
Thank you.
Anybody on Zoom?
Chris something.
Hello?
I think it's
Good evening.
covered, identify yourself.
Can you identify yourself, please?
Yes, hi, my name is Chris Latazzi. I am a 22 Park Ave, and I was asked by the Hyannis Park Civic Association to review the submission, as I previously have served on the Yarmouth Conservation Commission, and I work in the coastal environmental field. And I apologize that you're staring at a lovely scene of stormier days here. The goal of my review was to ensure that there were no adverse impacts to the already existing flooding concerns at the end of Glenwood. So I wanted to just kind of capture what I reviewed on this plan and some of the concerns that we have. So overall, the plan states it's not for construction, for permitting only, but that there are several important designations we're missing, including no notations of types of wetland resource areas, existing vegetative areas and species, no slopes indicated for the revetment, size or type of material being used, and where materials would be resourced from. I'm working on the assumption that the area defined as the sand recreational beach and proposed sand fill areas are being defined as land subject to coastal storm flowage, as the documentation only notes that a coastal zone does not exist on this lot, but the coastal bank is only located adjacent to the existing revetment. Also, the plan submission included in the format notes that the house is at AE 12. However, the plan itself refers to VE elevation of 13. And I couldn't find a LOMAR, a letter of map revision for this area. So it'd be helpful to get some confirmation of the plans and the figures, as the plan doesn't agree with the format that was provided. For the revetment wall, the plan calls to increase the existing revetment to 3 feet in elevation. Understandable, homeowners like to protect their structure. The concerns are as follows. How is the elevation going to be achieved? Will stones be stacked on top of the existing revetment cap? Will this make the wall much steeper and the stairs will have to be moved to accommodate the steepness? Or will there be a new engineered slope proposed as with the increased height? Neither the slopes, the size of the material being brought in, nor the stair run were indicated on the plan. Also, the plan calls for re-chinking as needed. The plan does not indicate the amount of chipping being proposed, what stone will be used, and if we have what was done in the past from the quarry, then most likely those stones will get thrown out. Cobble offers more stability with a higher price. And what is the minimum size of the stone? I think we all know on the board and in the industry that chinking stone reduces the ability of a revetment to break down wave energy, which will cause more water to potentially overtop the new height structures that the wall is looking to achieve. If the wall doesn't have voids, then the revetment will act more like a ramp for the water rather than reducing the water intrusion. With the velocity zone being 13 or 12 according to the FEMA maps, the new plan is only calling for 11-foot elevation or up to 11 feet. This means there'll still be significant wave overtopping, and that's only 3 feet of water overflowing the proposed. I'm wondering what modeling was done to ensure this new proposed 3-foot height is appropriate rather than going higher. For the lock wall, I think most people have already commented on that, but the proposed wall path runway runs parallel to the water. 35 feet of the 50 proposed foot wall run is within the 50 feet and where new hard structure is not allowed. I'm assuming the purpose of the lock wall is to capture the water that overflows the newly elevated revetment, but it's curious that the plan is also calling for an existing 4 to 5 feet of recreational beach area to be graded at the same exact height as both walls, which would create a completely flat surface for water to travel towards the dwelling, which is not the purpose of the project. The plan should also note that the sand being provided will be compatible with existing material, and the material will come from an approved upland source. If you're keeping the area flat, you would rather need to, you could change your slope rather than bringing in 400 cubic yards of additional material. For water drainage, the plan refers to improvements in the stormwater management of the site. However, with the placement of the lock wall, more water will be directed to the western boundary, aka Glenwood Street. There are currently concerns about the flooding of the low end of the southern end of Glenwood, with some suspicions that the water flows currently under the floodgate or through it, as seen by the sand deposits on the road adjacent to the gate. This area, I wanted the Conservation Commission to know, is currently under review by the Yarmouth Department of Public Works for solutions to existing flooding concerns. And I would suggest that DPW be consulted on this project to ensure that their review and current planning of Glenwood incorporates changes that are being suggested for this abutting property. For vegetation, the plan refers to an enhancement of the vegetated areas. There you don't see a reference to a planting plan. Looking at the plan, there is a sole species suggested. I'm assuming beach grass is Ammophila. Having a variety of appropriate vegetation will ensure a stronger and more stable recreational area for the owner. It's also more conducive to a wetland mitigation, diversified species recommendation, and significantly more vegetation as one of the members just suggested as a pathway would do much better to protecting the dwelling than just keeping it all sand. Lastly, this stairwell to the home structure leading from the lock wall is understandable if the proposal will forward the, currently not committed lock wall to be proposed. However, I would strongly suggest that the stairs not be located in the same exact pathway as the stairs for the revetment, as it means it's a seamless conduct for water. And I would want the owner to know that we'd want to have a staggered stairway system to reduce the water intrusion. And I feel in the end that the commission, as well as the homeowner, deserves a more detailed and thoughtful plan.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're going to be returning.
I can
Yeah.
respond to some of those items, but
I'm going to jump in first.
Right now.
Yeah.
I think that the person obviously is well-versed in this type of thing, and I'm sure she will be interested in attending the next meeting when you discuss the new plan.
And I would suggest that we get a copy of what she's talking.
If you'd like to put anything in writing and submit it to Brittany, and maybe it'd be helpful to the whole project, that would be
And
wonderful.
know who she represents.
Pardon me?
Know who she
Know
represents.
who she represents, yeah.
The Hyannis,
Hyannis Park Civic Association.
yeah, okay.
I couldn't hear you.
It's hard on Zoom, so maybe she could come into the next meeting.
Just to taper your expectations, Chris, a lot of the things you're asking for are beyond the scope of our site plan requirements because we don't require construction plans. I would say a couple of things that you pointed out especially are of interest to the board, such as the plan for the stairs when you increase the wall on the ocean side and the slope of the revetment, which is sort of provided in this drawing, but just having those out there and any plans for repair of the floodgate. But a lot of what you're asking is a little bit of an excess of what our site plan requirements are. So a lot of your questions will not be able to be required to be answered. But thank you for your detailed comments, and we appreciate it.
Okay, so.
I think we're going for a continuance. Yeah, we need a motion for continuance.
Okay, so motion to continue.
I will.
Jack? Second, David. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Thank you
you
for your
very much.
consideration.
Keep that for next time. Next one is the Mass Ave one.
Okay, next item is SD 832447, Down Cape Engineering, for Scott McKeon, 75 Mass Ave. Proposed elevation of an existing dwelling within a land subject to focus drawing flow. Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, Danny Gonzalez, professional engineer with Down Cape Engineering, here on behalf of Scott McKeon and his project at 75 Massachusetts Ave. There are two existing dwellings on this property. Right now, we're proposing just work on the front dwelling. We're going to lift that up, put a new flood zone compliant foundation under it, as well as expand some deck areas in the front and back of it. We are in land subject to coastal storm flowage, FEMA elevation 11, so the new foundation will meet all the requirements, and we are not proposing any fill at this time. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Brittany?
The only thing that I had is that to make sure to, obviously it's required, but flood vents in the foundation, it said foundation planned by others, but we probably will just add that as a special condition, given it's in the floodplain. And curious as to why they're choosing only to do one of the two dwellings.
I don't know for sure, but I suspect it's just kind of a financial decision.
Cost phasing.
I'm just curious, did we have something on this property years ago? Or is it the next?
I am unable to answer that question.
So I'll answer it, yes. There was an order of conditions issued to raise both of these dwellings,
Okay.
and we will close that out prior to, starting construction on this one.
Good that I can remember that.
Thanks, David.
I'm really impressed with myself.
Okay, nothing else, Brittany?
No?
David, anything
No?
else?
No?
Patrick?
I see there's the proposed porch and the proposed deck. Both look like they're being expanded from what was originally there. I haven't done the math to know if it's how much expansion, but I was just wondering if there's any concern about those additional footprints beyond the exterior of the house.
So since this is just the floodplain and the whole lot is developed, they're replacing lawn right now. So in general, with projects that they're increasing the foundation, there's a lot of fill, and that's what we're most concerned about. That's when we require plantings and stormwater evaluations. But since they're using stairs, which we greatly appreciate, instead of fill, we don't have mitigation requirements for an increase in footprint if it's just in the flood zone. There's also no trees or anything present. If there are a few trees present in a flood zone property, we would ask that they replace trees that they're taking down for additional footprint, but they're not. So in this case, it's okay.
Thank you.
Jack, anything?
Just that we include the flood vents.
No, everything good?
Anyone in the audience? Anyone on Zoom? Okay, can I have a motion to approve this project with the condition of including the vents, I guess? Is that correct? Okay. I'll go. Jack?
I'll second.
Second, Pat? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll try and put quick projects first next time. Sorry. Sometimes it's tough.
I usually like to write my name very neatly, but I can't do it this week.
That's all right. I don't write it neatly either.
Okay. Next, we have two certificates of compliance. SC 83-2104, 14 and 20 Kingsbury Way, and,
So they've requested a continuance. So that one has requested a continuance.
okay, so request a continuance, we can have a motion to continue that.
So moved.
So move David,
Second.
and by Jack?
No, Bradford.
Oh, Bradford? Yeah. Okay. All in favor of the continuance?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, passes by the requisite majority there, okay. Second one is SC 83-2126, 29 Crest Circle. Anything on this?
This one is all set.
Is all set? Okay, can I have a motion to issue the certificate of compliance?
Motion.
Was that Bradford?
Yes.
Okay.
Second?
Second, Pat. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
You have to sign that
Unanimously
one.
passes. Okay. Moving right along. What?
We have to sign that one, right?
Yes,
I'll get
please.
it there. This is too much fun.
Wait a minute, make sure it's the right one.
23 Crest Circle, that's the one I have to sign. All right, thank you. You're welcome, thank you. Okay, moving right along, continued stormwater application.
This has completed the peer review process and is all set.
It's all set, we don't have to do anything on it?
It's good to be issued the stormwater permit.
Do the stormwater, so we've all done that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we want to issue a stormwater permit on 770-28.
So moved.
So moved David, second Bradford, all in favor?
Jack. I gotta split those two up. Yeah, that was Jack.
Did I get the right one?
No, Jeff.
Oh, Jack did, okay. You all sound the same from down this way. Okay, do that. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
While you sign that, for Bradford's sake, we administer the stormwater management, or the stormwater management bylaw. And since none of us are engineers, we are allowed to hire outside consultants to review all of the engineering and calculations that they provide for stormwater management permits. So we basically just wait until that process is complete and issue that permit. We review the plans, but not the calculations, because none of us are qualified to do that. So that's what that vote was.
Thank you.
And that one does also need signatures, please.
For management, yeah. Sorry. That's all right. Well, you're good at this.
Have to keep that on. I think Ed really does it all about it.
Okay, next is an enforcement on SC 83-2148, Great Island Ocean Club, Powers Lane, road improvements violation of special conditions. And Brittany, I think you speak to that.
Yes. So this was reported by a neighbor, and there was an order of conditions issued in 17, I believe, SC 83-2148 for the paving and expanding of the Powers Lane roadway in the Great Island Ocean Club. Two of the conditions in that project were to not increase the elevation of the roadway and to avoid causing flooding to the neighboring properties from stormwater due to increasing the elevation. And the neighbor has reported flooding to her property due to the increased elevation of the roadway. And upon investigation, we went out there, and it does appear that the road is slightly elevated in some areas where they repaved it, and so that would in effect be a violation of this order of conditions, but we will require an as-built plan to quantify those differences if they do exist, because just by eye, it does look like there's a small difference, but we can't, it's really difficult to tell. So we will require an as-built plan, and if they are in violation of these two conditions, then we will have another hearing and discuss what steps they would take, either probably bringing back the elevation of the permitted roadway. They also have indicated, the engineers, Down Cape, they haven't contracted with them yet, but they've indicated they are about 4 to 5 months out from creating an as-built plan. So they may either need to seek other help for finding a surveyed plan, or we'll have to wait for that plan until they're able to provide it. Can you say your name for the record?
Yvonne McFarland.
Yvonne McFarland. And are you on the board of the?
Yes, I'm president of the board.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, because this is the first I'm hearing about that area creating flooding or being elevated too high. That's the first we've heard of anything like that, so.
So here's the photo that we received during flooding. On the original approved plans, the elevation of all of the surrounding driveways were the same as the elevation of the roadway. And it's clear in this photo that the elevation of the roadway is higher.
Well, that's not part of this, what was done. That is something that was done back in the 90s when they paved those roads, Powers Lane. So that has nothing to do with the expansion of the road that was done in 2018. 2018 was on the other side. It started at about 2 Powers, in front of 12 Powers. We started for 4 feet expansion around.
Yeah, it's on the
And
north.
then it went on and it tapered down to 0 just before the pool area. The house that you showed is in front of the pool area, and that had flooded even before we had to expand the road. We expanded the road is because in a lot of the area in that in the community, the front yards have extended into the road. It's going back as far as when the community was developed back in the 40s, and then when the homeowners started buying the properties and using them as their personal properties, no one really done anything. If your front yard ran into the road, people did not really take offense with it. But this one owner wanted his property back that was in the road. So that's what started the issue of having to keep the road at a adequate width for 2 lanes, 2-way traffic. So when he took back his road, that was at, I think it was 11 Powers. It was 12 feet in front of his house, and it needed to be 16. And conservation, that is what they wanted it to be, 16. So the plans that Down Cape did a engineering plan. They came up with different plans to expand it, and that is what they came up with, to gradually go from 4 feet in each end, taper down. So that is where, that is what was done in 2018. What is happening in front of 19 Powers, which is in front of the pool area, that had issues before that expansion. And I think that started was something that when in the 90s they paved the road, and I think I wasn't on the board then, but I think it's from that is probably what started not started, but caused maybe, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, so it is difficult.
But it started
Say.
before that expansion. It had nothing to do with that expansion that was done in 2018.
The only thing that we can do, this order of conditions is expired anyway, and it does require the closing out with an as-built plan in order. So that is required either way, to either prove that it is a violation or it is not. So we do need to see an as-built plan as soon as you can. I understand there are limitations with the contractors, but this plan does show the elevation of the roadway the same as the driveway as it was surveyed at 19. And so if that's the same as the as-built plan shows, then we will take back our violation notice to you and close out the permit. But if it's not, we may need to have some additional discussions about next steps. But the as-built plan is our next step for right now.
Okay, so that's the same thing as the order of conditions?
No, the order of conditions was the original permit, and it has since expired. So you completed the work, that's great, before it expired, so now it's expired, so you can't do any additional work. But in order to close that out, you need to file a request for a certificate of compliance, and that step requires the as-built plan, which you need the engineer on board for.
Okay, because this is, he couldn't have come to help me understand this, so I'm trying to get a feel of this, because we were under the impression that we had to do the order of conditions, we had to close that out. And
Yeah.
so we got a proposal from them to close that out.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't really say anything. It says here, review site plan, record order of conditions permit, site visit, instrument survey to update to current conditions as necessary, draft as-built site plan.
That's it, the as-built site plan, and it goes along with the request for certificate of compliance.
Okay,
So they're proposing what we need,
okay, okay.
and they have let me know that they cannot do it in an extremely timely manner. So we just need to see that as soon as they can provide it.
Okay, so do you need a copy do you need a copy of this?
That would be great if you can email me or leave a copy.
I have it extra.
Okay.
Okay, great.
So does the board have any other comments or questions? It is
Can we get
an as-built plan.
the as-built plan? Okay. We good?
Mm-hmm.
We need to vote on any?
We don't generally, you don't have to take outside comment for enforcement hearings, but you can if you'd like to.
Outside comments, no, anybody have an objection to taking outside comments? Does anybody like to comment on this? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Elaine D'Ambrosio, and I do live at 19 Powers Lane. And when they did this job it was December of 2018, I went to this meeting when they were first granted this condition. And my understanding was they weren't going to come up as far as they did. And I went out to I was there when he started paving. And I said, excuse me, it was Nadone, NJ Nadone that was doing it. I says, I have concerns because he started paving over the whole road. He goes, you have good reason to be. He goes, believe me, I'm going to do my best to try to keep the water out of your yard. Well, last winter was a nightmare. I mean, my septic system and my leaching field is in my driveway. Now the water that was puddling in front of the house before the speed bump, that's before my driveway, it was just on the road. It wasn't in the neighbor's driveway. All that water has been pushed into my yard, and that's going down the opposite side of where you see that gray shaded in area. It's on the opposite side, and it's coming down. And in 2016, I had to put a drain at the foot of my driveway because they had paved, not in the 90s, they had paved, I believe it was 2006, and then they did some more treatment. They said they were fixing areas on the road. They call it repairs. In 2016, I had a company come in and put a drain system at the foot of my driveway because the association refused to put a dry well. I showed them, I stood there, I did a video when it rained, I showed them how they're pushing the water into my yard. Their response was, we don't fix other people's property. But they were pushing the water into my yard. I had it surveyed. Mayo, I think it was, said it's 3 inches above your, they paved 3 inches above your driveway. I was the first one to build down there in 1990. I wasn't allowed to put my septic system in the dunes. I had no choice where I had to put it. But anyways, that water now that's coming in, it's coming in, it's like coming in before the drain, because when the drain was put in, they couldn't go all the way to the edge of my driveway because of utilities underneath the ground. So I had that company come back out since all this flooding, and he said, we can't dig there because there's utilities there. We can't extend your drain. So it wasn't 1990. They've been paving and they've been repairing the road several times, raising that road. And yes, it's been flooding, but this is the worst. This is like, those pictures were just from, three and a half, 4 weeks ago. And this winter, I live there year-round. I'm a resident here. And this is ongoing, and it's a nightmare.
Okay, well, thank you, I'm sorry for that. So just a question I have for you is that, so potentially, because the road is higher than it's supposed to be, it contributes to this situation? And so the as-built plan will show you what was intended to go there as opposed to what is there?
It will show us what is there currently
What
in comparison to this permitted plan.
It'll show what is there?
Yes.
Okay. You don't know if it was done improperly by virtue of that?
The as-built plan will show us if it has been done improperly, which it does appear, like she said, that 3 inches it is higher than the original roadway. I am not confident in my surveying by eye to require additional work be done based on my visualization of.
Yeah, well, how would you determine that?
Yes, so that's why, we can have them come back to a hearing in 2 months and have them reassess and put pressure on them to find another company to do the as-built plan. Because if it is this big of a problem, then maybe it does warrant, them searching around trying to find someone who can do it sooner, because then there might need to be work done to resolve the situation.
Yeah, I agree. I think I was out there with you, and it certainly looked higher.
Yeah.
And with my new eyes, I could see that even better.
Perfectly.
And I think it's sad that the association isn't taking care of the problem. I don't even think you should be here. I think you should have taken care of the problem when it first arose. And I think it was your property. You'd want that to be done too, rather than have it ruin your septic and your leach field. I think it's too bad that the association takes the stand it should. I think it should fix it, and I think it should fix it yesterday. So I'm looking forward to the as-built plan.
Any other comments?
I agree with Dave.
Okay.
So I did, what was issued was a violation notice requiring as-built plan by last week. So we would have to vote issuing an enforcement order revising the due date to be 2 months from now.
So what's reasonable? Next week?
They already told me that they're unavailable for 4 months. So if we want an update,
The association's unavailable?
no, the surveyor.
The surveyor?
So if we ask for an update in 2 months, go ahead, Bradford.
Is that 4 to 5 months to be able to do the survey, or 4
Or
to
have
5
it
months to
completed? That's a good question, I don't remember.
That drastically changes the timeline.
Mhm.
So clarification on that, but I think a 2-month update would be beneficial.
Yeah.
But if they can't come out for 5 months, how are we going to get somebody to do something in 2 months? Because there are all of the companies are all backlogged.
Yeah. I mean, you can take measures now if you believe that it is different than permitted. Or you can just provide an update in 2 months on the progress, if they have a progress update.
Okay. If we, okay. Because we do have the engineering plans that were originally done before they expanded the road. And I know that there's an awful lot of areas in the community that floods an awful lot because of where we are.
Absolutely.
And so I know that flooded, she would get water there. And a lot of people got water in their driveways.
So we are trying to separate,
We're trying to,
for our sake, that we're just discussing whether or not this is a violation of the order of condition, not whether or not you're causing flooding to your neighbors. That's the only way we can move forward on enforcement, is if you have a violation of our order of conditions or the wetlands bylaw. And in this case, the elevation was intended to remain the same, and that's just what we're trying to figure out, if the elevation of the roadway had changed.
hadn't changed from the 2018 order, or it changed, period. That's what I'm trying to clarify.
From this plan, if the elevations match what was permitted on this drawing or not.
Okay. So that had nothing to really do with the driveway and the roadway in her driveway, because it's not on that side.
But there was an area that over here that looked like it was repaved within or outside of the conditions of this permit, and that's what we're trying to investigate. Mm-hmm. There's like an area of new pavement in this area in front of 15 and 19.
It's pretty clear to me that was paved within the last,
Recently.
6 months, maybe or less.
Something in front of,
I don't have any way of showing you right now, but it's in this area behind. Which direction is this?
I'm trying to think of
Can you see the little hand and the speed bump? On this side of the speed bump, there's brand new pavement, or newish looking pavement that is above the elevation of the existing roadway. But I don't think we really have anything else to discuss at the time. Just looking for an update. We'll issue a revised enforcement order with same requirements, but a check-in at the hearing in 2 months.
And what does that entail, though, I'm wondering? I'm just trying to make sure I understand, so I can go back to the board and explain it to them. So what does that actually...
It can be as simple as you coming back saying you pushed and you shopped around for surveyors and no one is available sooner, or with a date where the survey will be available that you will provide us.
Okay, because we already hired Downcape.
Okay.
So.
If you could provide...
Downcape to start taking care of these problems of flooding, is that what you're saying?
To take care of this order of condition that we...
This one?
Yeah,
Okay.
for this one. We've already hired them.
Okay.
So they did the engineering and everything, and
Okay.
so...
All right. Do we need any kind of a,
Yeah, just a vote to revise issue a revised enforcement order.
okay, so we need a vote to revise the enforcement order? Okay.
Yes,
Any other details that have to be in that,
as discussed.
as discussed? Okay. I have a motion to that effect? Bradford motion did? Bradford did, okay. Second?
I'll second.
Jack, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes by the majority. Thank you very much for coming in.
If you could provide your email address as well on that paper.
Next item, well,
You, so we apologize for being what's between you and your dinner tonight, so sorry about that.
Not unusual.
David's taking us all out for dinner after this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, he has, I understand he has new eyes now. He had some work done and.
We'll get going in just a second. if you don't
No worries, I can start us up. Let me just exit the stuff. So this is 15 Webster. You guys may remember 13 Webster, which is their neighbor to the, directionally, I can't remember. But 13 Webster in the past had filled in their yard and put in an extensive gravel and patio landscape, which we then required.
First man.
And after the fact, notice of intent for unpermitted work in the flood zone, which is similar to the situation we have at 15 Webster. It appears that in last spring, there was unpermitted fill and a retaining wall constructed in the yard, which is also still in the flood zone, and due to our current floodplain regulations, that does require permitting. So you're issued a violation notice, just requiring your attendance today, and what I would be recommending is that we issue an enforcement order requiring an after-the-fact notice of intent, because this work that you've completed does require permitting with our board. Go ahead.
So, first of all, please accept my apologies for my lack of knowledge of regarding conservation and floodwaters. This is my first time living in a coastal community. I came from Connecticut and farm country. We had other worries about fertilizer in fields at that time. We purchased this home in the spring of 2022. I was unaware of any restrictions with my project. It was purely a lack of knowledge on my behalf. I was simply trying to improve the property. We have since that work was done. We've planted grass, not only on ours, but on the property below where that wall is, to provide some absorption there as well. And we are looking to add some further plantings, and of course, at the board's request, we certainly welcome any advice of what we could put on the property to help mitigate anything that may occur as a result of what we did. My only question is what can I do to correct my mistake and learn more about conservation and flood zones, as I'm a new resident in a coastal community here in Yarmouth. I will say one good tactic is saving people like me for last, because we learn a lot from what just went on tonight. So, and I'm serious about that. So I had no idea. I will tell you, there was a wall. And when I purchased the property, it was old railroad ties, hollowed out, falling apart. All I did was bring that out approximately 8 feet and fill it in. What we did was we removed a lot of trash and debris that was buried inside of that dirt. So there were piles of dirt. It was just weird terrain that was there. So our goal was to improve the property and the surroundings. And honestly, most of our neighbors have liked what we've done to 15 Webster Road since we purchased it.
So again, what is the recommendation for correcting?
Just due to structure the wall and fill in the floodplain, just that an after-the-fact notice of intent be filed. And usually that takes 3 months to find a surveyor, so that's what I would recommend the filing deadline be. And so for you, it would just pretty much be the surveyor completing an as-built plan and then providing any additional plantings on the plan, and any other work that you would want to permit. And for us, our floodplain regulations are new and more than they used to be, so it's just a requirement that you have this work permitted so we can assess the impacts on the flood zone.
Okay, so help me understand. Did you write all that down, sweetie?
I'm trying.
Yeah. What do I need to do? I mean, I need a surveyor to survey?
Yeah, so filing a notice of intent, you would need a surveyed site plan. And that's pretty much the majority of the application, is having a surveyed site plan, and whoever completes that would help you through the notice of intent and represent you at a hearing.
I can probably go back to Holmes and Sons, who works in the area, to help me with that.
Well, they're not surveyors, though. We need
Yeah.
surveyors, right?
What are they?
They're landscapers. They did the work.
No, they probably can't help you with this then.
Yeah.
I
We did
did-
ask if we needed a permit.
Yes,
You
I
said
did.
It was an existing wall.
Yeah.
Who did you ask?
Homes.
Yeah.
So the
Okay.
landscaper.
I was very specific in asking, do we need a permit? I mean,
I've
Ask
always
the
pulled
town.
permits, so, and they're like, no, you don't. I'm like, okay, so, and then, of course, this commenced, and number 13 happened. We spoke because we're butters with that, so now we're here today. My other question is, how often do you remap the flood zones? Because I don't know if number 13 impacts what happens to the rest of the neighborhood with what they did in the past and most recently.
So FEMA remaps approximately every 10 to 15 years.
Okay.
The last map is from 2014, but there's no news
Yeah.
on a new floodplain map.
2014? Because I thought it was,
I think it's 2014.
because when I put my addition on, well, it was 2014 now that I think about it. Yeah, we were under the new, okay, yeah.
So just to clarify, around the wall, any work on a wall, whether it be an existing wall or brand new one, would need a permit in the flood zone?
You brought in fill in the flood zone, so that's one trigger.
Yeah.
Bringing in fill, paving where there is not pavement currently, that would be another trigger, or building a structure within the floodplain can sometimes be a trigger depending on what the structure is.
So if the structure is already there, about 3 feet off of the
So
pier.
you're triggered anyway, you brought in fill.
I gotcha.
So you're changing the elevations.
And for any future,
In the future, I would just get in touch with the Conservation
Yeah, I will.
Commission. and
I will.
Here's what we're thinking of doing,
Yeah.
what do you think?
honestly, personally, I didn't even think of the flood zone, so, okay. All right. Any recommendation on plantings? Is grass, sod enough, or?
I'm happy to send you recommendations, and I can also send you who often surveys plans that are sent to us.
Oh,
It's
that'd
not
be
a
great.
recommendation of a person, but people who file with the town often enough that they are surveyors that exist nearby.
Okay, so we need a motion for,
An enforcement order to be issued.
okay, just that?
Mhm.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. All set.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think Bradford should have his first motion framed, being new on the board, wouldn't you think? Thank you all, have a great night.
Many, he doesn't know that yet. He's got to learn to eat a late dinner, or an early dinner or a late dinner.
I had a little snack before I came.
Do we have to sign anything?
Put mine down?
Do we have to sign anything?
I don't know. No, this is Webster Road.
Webster, wait a minute, Webster Road, which one was it? Yeah, but,
I'll ask her in a second, and just don't let anybody go anywhere.
I was kind of expecting something, quite honestly.
Okay. So the next item is everyone's approval of meeting minutes, September 5th, 2024.
I read the minutes, they seem fine, so I make a motion to accept.
Second.
Bradford, you weren't here, right?
Right.
You on?
Yeah, you were here on Zoom.
So all in
I made the
favor of
changes that you asked for.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
They're like two little grammar changes.
Yes.
Okay, and then update sewer hookup refunds?
Yeah, did you give these out too?
They were in the packet.
Yeah. So, okay, so I received this from one of the state reps, Mr. Flanagan. He had mentioned at a meeting I was at that the new state budget had this section in it in which, if you read it, people will get a tax credit. I'm a little confused. I'm actually meeting with him Saturday, so I'm going to ask the question. I'm a little confused where it says, shall be the actual cost of taxpayer $30,000, which is ever less, and then it talks about a maximum of $18,000. So I'm not sure, because I'm not a lawyer, what all that means. But I think the bottom line is people who spend money will be able to get a tax credit not to exceed $4,000 in a tax year. So if you would spend, so I can do this easy math, $16,000, you would get 4 years of $4,000 credit if you are obviously paid taxes worth that much. So in other words, someone like me, who is a former teacher, I don't pay a state tax because we don't get Social Security, and my state tax bill is very little.
too, right? And so I would get back very little. Me too. Yeah, so I would get back very little, but I get back something. But if you're, someone who is moved down here and Bradford's age, let's say, and he puts out $16,000 and certainly pays state tax, he would get a $4,000 credit. So it's for primary residents only. So people who own the second house down here would not get the credit. And I don't, someone asked me at the commission meeting, this is from when I brought this to the wastewater advisory council. Someone asked about that, and I said, I just assume the state didn't want you to double dip, because if let's say you live in, I don't know, eastern, western Mass, and you have to put a new septic in, this also includes people who put new septics in. So, but there is a credit, and to me, I think it's nice that we should know that. I am working with the wastewater people to get that word out. I talked to two selectmen over the last week, and they're excited by this too. And I'm meeting with Senator Sayre and Representative Diggs and Representative Flanagan on Saturday at a different meeting. I'm going to bring this up again. So I just wanted you guys to know.
Yeah, thank you.
I thought it was good news, personally. Okay. The last item is regulation updates.
Yeah, so our bylaw that was approved at town meeting in the spring has been approved by the Attorney General, and so that means we need to post some regulations to support it, and they are in the works. You pretty much mostly all reviewed them, except for Bradford, so we'll get him to review them first, but we're hoping to have them posted next week for a 3-week, so to have them available online for 3 weeks before our next the hopeful meeting that we'll have on October 17th, where we'll have a public hearing during our regularly scheduled meeting. Hopefully it'll be a light day so we can have a good discussion on those regulations to support our bylaw that's been approved. I just have two other, are there any comments about that?
No, but before you make another comment about something else, I wanted to say I went for one of Brittany's walks last week, and it was excellent. It was pretty well attended.
Yes, thank you.
Really good things about the previous walk, which I didn't go to. So we all appreciate the work you put in for that.
Yeah, so we've had a new guided walk series by me. Our first walk was at Sandy Pond. We had 20 attendees, and our second walk was at Cirilla Conservation Area. There were 10 attendees, and we're going to have one in the near future. We're working with the Historical Society to see if we can use their trails behind the post office in Yarmouthport, but we're hoping to do one at Callery Darling. But the parking is a limiting factor at our other conservation areas, so we're working on other locations.
A bus.
A bus. But just two other quick announcements. There is a walk through at Chasebrook Park at 10 a.m. on Monday to talk about the new park there. It's from the library, but Karen, Nate, and I, Nate is the primary project manager. He'll be walking us through the park progress and plans. And there's also, on October...
That was Monday at what time?
Monday at 10 at Chasebrook Park. And then on October 4th, there is an environmental funding announcement. So we recently received a SNAP award, which is the Southeast New England Program Watershed Implementation Grant for $434,000 for the Chasebrook Park project, and we were selected to be the host for the award ceremony. So two other areas in Massachusetts were awarded for projects, and Representative Bill Keating will be joined by other federal, state, and local partners to announce the funding that has been awarded, and our project will be highlighted. So that will be very exciting. Oh, it's at 11:30, rain or shine, October 4th. That's all I have.
That money is going to be spent on to develop that park?
Yes, so the money was awarded for all aspects of construction relevant to water quality improvement. So it does exclude the construction of the pedestrian bridge.
Oh, okay.
So we are seeking additional funding through the CPC program, the Capital Budget Program, and the Tourism Preservation Fund, and other state and federal grants.
What is the bridge?
The total budget for the bridge. I can't remember, I think it's about $450,000 for just the bridge.
Usually I try to ask questions at the end.
The bridge is a large portion of the cost of the project, so that's why we do still need to seek additional funding.
It's a big bridge then.
Yeah, 20-foot span.
Okay, anything else?
That's all. Thank you.
Okay. I have a couple of things here, I'm not sure if we missed signing them, so if you want to check before you leave, that would be good. Kind of think that a
What
little.
are the two things Brittany will answer?
Maybe you could help, I think we have to sign Webster Road.
Webster, we sign.
Okay, we did, this is not signed.
Oh, we need to sign.
Yeah, we have to sign that one. And what about this other one is, do anything with Powers Lane?
Yes, we need that one as well.
And what, this is,
That one we don't need, that's a continuance.
all right. Okay, so if you come over and sign these, that'd be great, thank you, and, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?